On Brick Plant Road lies an abandoned plot of land. Overgrown by weeds and debris, this acreage has long been forgotten by the city of Atlanta and its residents. Once a prosperous brick company stood on this land, and with the help of convict labor, it flourished in the Reconstruction era South. Recently, the land has been a source for a citywide debate that centers around what is next for the land. To look towards the future of this rundown property, first we must look at its past.
Founded by former Mayor James W. English in 1885, the Chattahoochee Brick Company helping bring Atlanta and the rest of Georgia out of the ruins caused by Sherman's March to the sea. Chattahoochee Brick was a major contributor to Atlanta during the era of Reconstruction, as in its prime it churned out 300,000 bricks a day. The caveat to this success, however, was the conditions in which the people worked. It was an undesirable occupation and it was filled with the undesired workers, least convict laborers.
The South, whose infrastructure, including penitentiary, was in ruin, found itself with a lack of holding for criminals, of which there were a growing number. Most of these convicts were African-American men arrested on little evidence for petty crimes such as vagrancy. Opposed to portioning off money the city of Atlanta did not have to build jail cells, the idea came up to sell the criminals' labor to private business so the city could instead return a profit.
A person does not have to look any further than the Atlanta Constitution to find articles about the violence and the abuse inside the Chattahoochee Brick Company spanning decades. In an article from January 11, 1896, a brother of one of the workers stated that convicts were, quote, sent to the pen and worked to death, overexertion, terrible sanitary accommodations, half-fed, half-clothed, and inhumanely treated, end quote. A little over a decade later, in an article from July 26, 1908, the Constitution ran a story fully detailing the abuse by the company. The men at the camp, quote, were worked too hard and the food was bad and the bedding in the dining room and the sleeping quarters were unsanitary, end quote. Overseers were harsh with punishments and beatings, food was just shy of inedible, sleeping conditions were cramped, and the work itself was grueling. Often, there was no record of the locations of convicts, so legal buying and selling took place among business owners. The system truly seems slavery by another name, as David Blackman put it in his book by the same name. PBS did a documentary based on Blackman's book, and here's a short clip about convict labor replacing slaves in industrial settings.
Triggered decades of rapid industrial growth. After emancipation, industrialists replaced slaves with convicts, acquiring thousands from state and county governments.
You can't drive free labor the same way that you can force prisoners to mine 5 tons of coal a day. And this is why people like Milner wanted prisoners in his coal mines. He saw them as a great source of profit, and he didn't have to worry about labor disputes.
Perhaps most horrifying of all in regards to the factory was the aura of death that surrounds it. Many men found their deaths at Chattahoochee Brick Company. It is impossible to count how many died while working there, and it is speculated that unmarked graves litter the site. Even worse, there had even been reports in the past of Brick Company cremating bodies in the brick kiln, which left the uncleared ashes to be mixed with the bricks that would then go on to build parts of Atlanta.
Much like many slaves, the convicts of the Chattahoochee Brick Company attempted to escape. A few wanted posters for the escapees can be found at the Atlanta History Center. Rewards for the capturing of convicts range from $50 to $450.
At the turn of the 20th century, free laborers started creating a ruckus because of the disadvantages they faced in labor compared to the leased convicts. A convention held in the Atlanta Capitol building brought forth many witnesses to recount their horror stories and testify against the practice of convict labor. After 3 months of listening to witness testimony and of deliberation, the state of Georgia banned leasing of convicts for labor to the private sector beginning early 1909.
The Chattahoochee Brick Company went in red shortly after the end of convict leasing. It struggled for a few more decades employing the more expensive free laborers. It was then bought by General Shell in the 1970s, and the factory was eventually demolished in 2011, leaving a desolate plot of land.
Now this piece of land has uncertain terms in regards to its future. In a sector of Atlanta zoned primarily for industry, Lincoln Terminal Company, which had purchased some of the land, the original property, has plans to build a biofuel pipeline distribution facility. Groundwork Atlanta was involved after a member of its board and nearby resident brought his concerns towards the nonprofit.
But Groundwork Atlanta is not the only group to have their sights set on the area. The Path Foundation has begun construction on the Proctor Creek Greenway, a trail along Proctor Creek that will connect Bankhead MARTA Station to the Chattahoochee River.
This ongoing debate about the site can still be seen to this day as a sign displaying information about a public hearing pertaining to what should be done with the site stands firm alongside its entrance. Even though it appears there is an attempt to take input from the community, the fact that not many know about the dispute to begin with, or even what the site holds, greatly hinders the effort to remember the tragedy and impact the Chattahoochee Brick Company. In the end, only a select few do know the truth about what lies in the grounds, resulting in the fate of the location to rest in the hands of some councilmen and individuals willing to continue petitioning in hopes to spread awareness of Atlanta's forgotten history and bring recognition to those who had toiled and raised up the city that we know from its ashes.